Even though I'm of the opinion that 2024 was a great year for LEGO, I have to admit that there were a few sets that just didn't hit the mark for me. Now, these aren't the worst sets of 2024, and this is definitely not an objective list, because these are all based on my personal expectations and building experiences. And I'm also not numbering them because I wasn't going to force myself to think of 10 sets when in reality I only had 7 sets that really let me down. So without further ado, I'm Joe, and this is my most disappointing sets of 2024. So let's start off with an easy one, and that is set number 76274, Batman with a Batmobile versus Harley Quinn and Mr. Freeze. This one actually wasn't a bad set at all. The build for the Batmobile is fantastic, it plays really well, and I love that LEGO continued with the inclusion of the display stand. It even had 3 great minifigures, 2 of which came straight out of a way more expensive set. So what was my issue with this set then? Well, it's because it's blue. I totally get that this was a stylistic choice, because the highlights for black in the animated series was dark blue. But at the end of the day, the Batmobile is black. It was really odd lining up all of the previously released black Batmobiles and then suddenly having a blue one. It really messed with my OCD. Next up, we have the Harry Potter talking sorting hat. While this set is actually a pretty good recreation of the source material, the real question is if the source material was good enough to base a LEGO set on. And my answer is a firm no, because aesthetically speaking, it's quite a crude and ugly looking set. The scaled down size also didn't help at all, and the final product looks more like dino droppings to me than a wizard's hat. Now it does have some good things about it, like the way the face moves when pressing down on the tip of the hat, and also like the 4 printed house tiles, and the Harry Potter minifigure is great. But the biggest letdown to me was the biggest feature of the set, and that was the sound brick. Don't get me wrong, I love the idea, and the fact that there were 31 randomized sound bites was good, but the sound quality just wasn't good enough for me. Couple this with a very steep asking price, and the set becomes even less appealing. My kid really loved interacting with the hat, but this was marked as an 18+ set, which ultimately felt a bit unnecessary to me. And up next, we have the XMen X-Jet. One thing that has become very clear in the last few years is how ridiculously overpriced some LEGO sets are, and the X-Jet was one that really stood out to me. Like many, I was very excited to see the return of LEGO X-Men, but the kickoff set landed with a solid thud. The jet's overall shape was pretty good, but on closer inspection you realize that it is somewhat lacking, especially in the rear. On top of that, the biggest draw card for me was probably the minifigures. And while they sound great on paper, the execution comes with way too many buts considering the price. Cyclops is awesome, but they could have given him dual molded legs at the very least. Rogue is another awesome addition, but the print quality on her torso was very disappointing. And the same goes for Wolverine's legs, an odd one considering we already have a fantastic version of him from the Marvel CMF series that had great arm and leg printing. I have to admit that getting an alternative Magneto minifigure was awesome though. Ultimately, this X-Men set was just a little bit undercooked. Next up is the Avengers Helicarrier. So I really like the mid-scale display ships from Star Wars, and I was very happy to hear that the idea was jumping over to the Marvel universe. And I got even more excited to hear that it was going to be a model of the Helicarrier. Unfortunately, this set disappointed me as soon as it was revealed. The high price is certainly a problem, but the real disappointment comes when you realize that this set included a total of 28 stickers. All of the details seen on the runway is done with stickers, and it was very frustrating applying so many stickers and making sure that they were all lined up just right. Surely the right approach would have been to do this with duplicate printed tiles instead. Overall, the model's shape and proportions are very accurate to the source material, but the amount of stickers included for such a small set really made the asking price very excessive. I don't know, maybe the inclusion of a minifigure to place on the stand would have made it feel slightly better. Next, we have the LEGO Travel Moment set, and this is an odd one. This set was based on the winning set from LEGO Masters US Season 4 called World Wonderliner by Christopher and Robert from Duck Bricks. Now, when I say based, it is very loosely based on that set. Of course, the original set was gigantic and LEGO had to make significant changes, but the disappointing part is the fact that they changed the concept of the set, instead opting to go for a set you build with friends or family to document your personal traveling moments. First off, the plane looks a bit odd, especially the nose, and the flat earth just does not work for me personally. It also looks quite odd with a black rod sticking out at the back, but it does look slightly better with photos attached to them. I do like the amount of printed parts we get in this set, and the mini vehicle builds are cute, but unfortunately this one just didn't work for me, and it's not something I'd want to display in my house. Personally, I would have loved a bigger, well-designed plane that included small landmark builds for a few travel locations. Okay, so the next two sets are probably going to be a little bit controversial, but I hope my reasons will validate my disappointment somewhat. So let's all take a deep breath and jump right into them. So my second biggest disappointment for this year was Jabba's Sail Barge. And I want to be very, very clear that, minor design issues aside, I really like this set. I love the scale of the ship, and design-wise it looks great for what it is, and the minifigure selection is also fantastic. And I never thought that this figure would make a comeback. My disappointment again is mostly around value, especially when you compare this to sets that fall within the same price range like the exceptional Rivendell or even the Avengers Tower. It just feels like it's missing something, and I just so happen to know exactly what it is missing thanks to this little set that LEGO released just 2 months before the Sail Barge. The Desert Skiff and Sarlacc Pit is exactly what is missing from the big brown UCS set, and I believe it's really disappointing that you would need to spend an additional $80 US to make an already overpriced set feel complete. So while I love the set, and yes, I did get the skiff set too, I can't help but feel just a little bit annoyed when admiring this set in my display. And finally, we get to my number one biggest disappointment for 2024, and that set was the Legend of Zelda Great Deku Tree 2-in-1. This is another beautiful looking set. It features fantastic builds, incredible minifigures with awesome accessories to boot, and every bit of detail you see is printed. Everything about this set just screams perfection for a fan of the Legend of Zelda series. And yet I was deeply disappointed with this one, and the reason is right there in the name. Why did they make this set 2-in-1? Why could they have not just released this as 2 sets instead of 1? And maybe they could have thrown in an Ocarina of Time Princess Zelda minifig while they were at it. Now some might say that this is extra bang for your buck, getting 2 sets for the price of 1, but I would argue that the price tag does not justify that standpoint at all. It is very overpriced, and it's unfortunate that some pieces will end up being unused depending on the build you choose. Once again, I'm going to reiterate that both versions look so good, and it's very hard for me to settle on one version to build and display. But there is no way that I'm going to go out and buy an extra set just to see both. To me, this felt like LEGO and Nintendo just wanted to capitalize on one of the most anticipated and hyped up sets of the year, which I totally get. It is a business after all. But that doesn't mean I can't be disappointed with the chosen direction. I just hope that we get some smaller sets down the line, because poor value aside, it is a very strong set to launch the theme with. And I'm done. I think that was enough complaining for 1 year. I just want to reiterate that this was just my personal feelings about what is ultimately expensive toys. But I also feel like we need to be a little bit more critical about how LEGO sets prices for sets going forward. Because I do see a worrying trend looking at the sets announced for 2025. And the only way we can make a change is by voting with our wallets. Anyways, let me know what you think of my list, and why not drop your constructive thoughts in the comments below. And while you're at it, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel if you like this review and what we do. And as always, thanks for watching.